Feed Your Family Tonight podcast. Each week, we are serving up motivation and inspiration to help you get weeknight dinner on the table, letting you recapture a little calm in the crazy. And now, your host, speaker, author, and married mother of four, Mariefiebach.
Welcome to the Feed Your Family Tonight podcast, episode 124. I'm your host, Mariefiebach, and today we're going to talk about special food memories. Actually, I'm going to be kind of focusing on food memories associated with holidays. This week, if you're listening to this in live time, it's March of 2021, and we've just passed St. Patrick's Day. And on St. Patrick's Day, my Instagram feed was full of all things green, including lots of green food, green waffles and green smoothies. I saw green donuts and green cream puffs. I asked the Feed Your Family Tonight Facebook group if they were cooking special food for St. Patrick's Day. And there were so many people that cooked special foods. And some of them cooked traditional St. Patrick's Day foods like corned beef and cabbage and Irish soda bread. And other people just had green stuff. And I thought it was interesting to see how different families approach different holidays with food. Special foods can be really fun, or they can be really overwhelming. And we're going to talk about both sides today. I've said before in previous podcasts that traditions are great for our children because they create stability and predictability for them. If they know that my kids on Valentine's Day, since they were little, wake up and there is a helium balloon tied to their chair. And that is something that they have come to rely on, and it creates stability and predictability for them. My kids are all teenagers now, and this year I still got balloons at the dollar store for my kids on Valentine's Day. And that's kind of the same thing with food traditions. Special foods can surprise and delight your family, and they can also be things that they learn to rely on. I grew up with a lot of food traditions. Some of them were very simple, and some of them were very elaborate. My mother on Valentine's Day, she would make biscuits and put a couple of drops of red food coloring in them and cut them out with a heart-shaped cookie cutter. And we would have pink heart-shaped biscuits on Valentine's Day. And then on St. Patrick's Day, she would put a couple of drops of green food coloring in and cut them out with a shamrock cookie cutter. Super simple, nothing that took too much effort for her, but it was something that we kind of came to rely on. She still makes both of those things today when our family goes over for family dinner near holidays. But then sometimes she had more elaborate food traditions. At St. Patrick's Day, we always had a large meal of corned beef and cabbage, and my father would make this flaming Irish coffee. Then the next day, we would always have Reuben sandwiches because my dad really liked them, and we would use the leftover corned beef to make Reuben sandwiches. Kind of an elaborate family food tradition. My mother's most elaborate food tradition is probably her Halloween cookies. I'll link to a blog post that kind of talks about them a little bit. But she literally still to this day makes hundreds of iced sugar cookies shaped like jack-o'-lanterns, and each one of them has an individual face made with all sorts of different candies, and she shops for candies year-round. This, for my mother, is something that is a bit of a creative outlet. It's also a way for her to share her gifts and talents with those that she cares about. She sometimes gives away food during the Christmas season, but she found that something at Halloween kind of surprised and delighted people. And so it became an elaborate food tradition that she still does to this day. Again, traditions can be simple or elaborate. You're not a better mom if you do simple ones. And you're not a better mom if you do super elaborate ones. What matters is that they are meaningful to you and they are meaningful to your children. If having food traditions kind of stresses you out, then let it go. It's not something that you have to do to be a good mom, But if it's something that brings you a little bit of joy or brings your kids a little bit of joy, then it's something to start weaving into the fabric of your family's rhythm. Now, I want to preface this by saying there's two really important things when it comes to food traditions. The first is they are optional. This is not something that you have to do. It's not something that's going to make you a better mom or a more fun mom because you do food traditions, because I bet if you don't like to do food traditions, I bet you do other really fun things with your children. So I don't want you to think that doing food traditions is necessary to be a fun mom. The other thing is that food traditions can be flexible. You don't have to do something once and think that you're going to have to do it for your kids until they are 22 years old. Food traditions are flexible, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. I think many of you know that I am not a Pinterest mom. I am not someone that really takes delight in finding themes that work and doing fancy foods and fancy parties. I really appreciate it when I go to someone's house and they are a Pinterest mom and they do it, but I'm just not that kind of mom. When you are talking about food traditions, you don't have to do everything from scratch. If you're like me and you're not a Pinterest mom, but you want to do a little something, outsource it. There are so many places that you can outsource special food traditions to. My house cleaner, she goes by the handle Mary Big Hair on Instagram. If you don't follow her, you need to follow her because she's really funny. And she was talking about how she had her fancy St. Patrick's Day traditions that were very, very traditional, which was a box of Loft House style cookies, iced sugar cookies with green and white frosting and green and white sprinkles on. And then she had some shamrock cookies that were shamrock cookies with sugar sprinkled on that she bought. It wasn't homemade. Family food traditions do not have to be homemade. Most donut stores will do some type of a holiday donut, and maybe your food tradition is that you go and get a donut on Valentine's Day, and you go and get a donut on St. Patrick's Day, and you get a special donut on the 4th of July. I know lots of pizza places will do heart-shaped pizzas around Valentine's Day, and I think that's really, really fun to have as a family or to give to the kids while the parents go out to a special Valentine's dinner. Again, you don't have to be doing these food traditions homemade, but your kids might come to like getting their heart-shaped pepperoni pizza at Valentine's Day while the parents go out and have a quiet date. It also doesn't have to be junk food or sweets. If you have a Great Harvest bread in your area, they do the neatest thing at Easter time where they make their honey whole wheat bread, which is bread that has water, yeast, salt, and flour and honey, 5-ingredient bread. So it's really clean eating. And they shape it into bunny rabbits, and they are the cutest thing you have ever seen. If you want to do that for Easter this year, I recommend calling ahead to your local Great Harvest and making a reservation for the number of bunnies that you need, because most of the time they are only by reservation. But it doesn't have to be junk food to be a food tradition. I suspect you may have some local places that have special foods every now and then. Just a few minutes from my house, there is a Lebanese Orthodox church. And for years, they would have a special community dinner where they would make all of their traditional Lebanese foods and invite the community to come and eat dinner in their church hall or to buy takeout and take it home. And my husband and I, for years, would go to their community dinner. And my husband learned to love their traditional foods of kibbe and tabbouleh and grape leaves and yakni and rus. And of course, the baklava, which they pronounce baklava. It's a little different than traditional Greek baklava because it doesn't have honey in it, but it is so delicious. And after going to this community dinner for many, many years, my husband said, "Can you learn how to make this food?" And so I started talking to a few of my friends. One of them was Lebanese. One of them married a Lebanese family and learned all the shortcut tricks so that she could make the traditional foods without having to go to all the work. I learned a lot from her. God bless her. She taught me so much. But that became part of our family's favorite foods. And I can make a pretty mean stuffed grape leaf right now, and I can make a really good baklava. It's delicious. And so by learning from local flavors, perhaps you will start bringing new food flavors into your family and creating new food traditions. And it might have started with something that you learned from someone that was local. Food traditions can be flexible. I remember I have a clear memory of being a young girl. I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and my little sister was 6 months old, and my mother let us make a half birthday cake for her. And I never have made a half birthday cake ever again, but I have such fond memories of that half birthday party with my best friend who lived next door. And I remember that it was this angel food cake that we totally made from a box with 7-minute frosting on it that was mint green. And it was such a fun and special day. It was a half birthday, and it was a quote unquote food memory, but it really wasn't a tradition. It wasn't something that we kept on doing, but it was fun and it was special and it created memories. And that's kind of what food traditions are about. For years, my family would have my oatmeal pancakes. I'll link to that recipe in the show notes, but we would have those every Saturday morning. I would make them with chocolate chips on them, and my kids knew that on Saturday mornings we had pancakes. But you know what happened? My kids kind of got bigger. And on Saturday mornings, we started to have sporting events. We had basketball games and soccer games, and I don't even know what else, but we started getting busy on Saturday mornings. And then as my kids got out of sports, they turned into preteens and teenagers who started valuing Saturday morning sleep more than Saturday morning pancakes. Now, does that mean all of those years of making pancakes did not create memories? Not at all. My kids have really fond memories of Saturday morning pancakes, but those memories are great memories, but they don't trump the fact that my kids are valuing their sleep-in time on a Saturday morning more at this phase of life. So our traditions don't have to stay, and you don't have to do the same thing all the time to create family traditions. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the delicate balance for when you as the parent don't really want to do a food tradition, but you know you have a child that really wants a special food tradition. And as a parent, you can always say, nope, we're not going to do that. It's not something our family values, and there is nothing wrong with that. But there is also a little bit of joy in listening to your children and finding things that are meaningful to them. My oldest daughter learned about April Fool's Day in preschool, and she thought that was the neatest thing ever. And her little 4-year-old self tried to play April Fools on us that year, and it was comical. She was either really, really mean because she was trying to be a jokester, but it came off as something that was really, really mean, or it was something that was just so ridiculous that it wasn't a prank at all, but you still had to laugh and go along with it. Have you ever done that with a preschooler? So the next year, I knew that April Fool's Day was something that was going to be important to her. And again, I've said before, I am not the Pinterest mom, right? But I dug deep into the internet and I found all of these ideas for April Fool's Day. And I made her a very special April Fool's Day lunch. And this lunch, I had an apple that I took and I just carved a tiny little hole in it and I shoved in a gummy worm so that she had a worm in her apple. And then I took vanilla wafers and frosting and York peppermint patties, and I made a hamburger out of 2 vanilla wafers and a mini York peppermint patty, and I put on with water some little sesame seeds on the top so it looked like a hamburger bun, and she had this little hamburger made out of York peppermint patties and vanilla wafers. And then I took a razor blade and I sliced off the back of a bag of Doritos. And I took out all of the Doritos and I put in some carrot sticks. And then I sealed the bag up with a piece of double sticky tape. And I put all of these things into her lunch. And there was another mom who was a classroom helper that day. And she was watching as Gianna was opening her lunch, having no idea what was inside her lunch. And she said she saw Gianna's eyes get really, really wide, like in surprise. And then a big smile came across her face. And she just quickly reveled in all of the little pieces in her lunch and smiled and did not say a word to any of the other kids. But that kindergarten April Fool's Day lunch is something that she still talks about. And I created a lasting memory for her by doing something that was totally out of my comfort zone, something that was kind of a bit of a hassle. I mean, tracking down all of those ingredients and putting it all together, it was probably not something that I felt like doing at the time. I mean, I had 2 little babies still. The twins were very little in diapers and I'm sure all over the place. But I took the time to create that memory for her because it was important to her. So if you have a child that wants to do something special with food and it's a little out of your comfort zone, maybe consider giving it a try to create a lasting memory and as a way of showing them that you care about the things that are important to them as well. So I want to know in the Feed Your Family Tonight Facebook group, what are some of your special memories with food and what are some of the food traditions that you have in your family? If you have some that you outsource to other people and it's just something simple that you buy at the store, I totally want to hear that. And if you have something homemade that's really, really special with a special family recipe, I want to hear about that too. So join me in the Feed Your Family Tonight Facebook group, and we'll catch you next time, friends. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Feed Your Family Tonight podcast with your host, Mariefiebach. If you like the show and want to know more, please visit feedyourfamilytonight.com. And if you'd like to help support the show, please leave a rating or review on iTunes or Apple Podcast. It helps spread the word that you can feed your family tonight.